And well, on that front, I can't use an opportunity like this without asking Bill about the little thing called carbon pricing. I mean, whatever we put in those new accounts, there's going to be carbon, there's going to be externalities in a whole range of different ways, and there's going to be this journey towards pricing. You haven't given up yet, but you've been right on the front line of a big old battle there.
It's definitely haven't given up, and in fact, I think we're getting some pretty good momentum. But I'm a firm believer in the power of markets, and I think the part of what caused Mark Carney and then Mark Carney asking me to chair this voluntary this task force for scaling the voluntary carbon markets was a belief that markets could accomplish things that are hard for governments to do, and. But markets only work if you allow the market to work, and markets can't work if there's no price. And there's got to be one price. And part of the problem with the carbon markets over the past 30 years, they've always been there. Some are quite big. The European emission trading system is a big market, but it's a controlled market. It's controlled by the European governments, and they can make the price go up and down based on how many allowances they float into the market, which is entirely at their discretion. And it works. It has reduced the level of carbon emissions in Europe by a lot through pricing. But it's not a global market, and there's not an agreed set of global standards. So we said, if the market's going to work, we've got to have a single set of standards that everybody agrees is a very high standard, that nobody can question, an unassailable set of standards. And we spent a year with 450 members of a task force from all parts of the value chain.
Amazing.
The big emitters, the oil companies, the airlines, the intermediaries like banks, the NGOs, academics, governments, although the governments took a sort of more of an observation role in that task force. And we've come up with the first cut of standards, which are in fact very, very rigorous. And as important as the standards themselves is we put a governance framework in place so that those standards could be maintained and curated indefinitely. Science will change, understandings will change. Let's stick with it. It's now up and running. The market increased in size by about 3 times last year. It will increase in size 3 times again this year, would be our forecast. I bet it goes even further now that oil prices and coal prices have gone up so much, because the need to find alternatives is ever greater, just economically. Forget about appealing to people's need to save the planet. Just cold hard cash is encouraging people into these projects. So. But if we get a good, clear, transparent price, then you can make a decision whether you want to take that incremental flight or whether you'd rather invest in something else because you know that there's a real cost in pounds and pence or dollars and cents. And we're not fully there, but I think we're on the road.
But it is real progress.
It's real.
It's real. It's transformative. And the year ahead is what are the rocks you're trying to kick out of the road that will help it push it up the next beat?
I think that there's probably the biggest philosophical debate is whether it's okay to pay people not to destroy nature.
Yes. And that has been a stumbling block for a long time.
That's the real
We've got in Amazon, we've got Indonesia.
But if we just do the math, unless you think that there's a possibility that cold fusion is right around the corner and we all get the get out of jail free card, but unless you have that kind of a scenario, if we continue to destroy the Amazon and the Congo Basin, or the Indonesian rainforest at the pace that we are right now, today, destroying those natural carbon sinks, we can't get to net zero. We have to stop that destruction. And we can all appeal to human nature and goodwill and say, please stop burning big tracts of the Amazon. But it's not worked. And I think we have to give a really good shot at paying people to do what they should do anyway, but human beings being human beings, they may take the cash from an illicit source rather than taking the cash from a very legitimate source, which is the carbon markets. So let's see if we can protect the existing carbon sinks and then also generate substantial investments to create new carbon sinks.
Yeah, and that is all the natural capital debate that we've just got to push down. It's a big one for you, Jennifer, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, that in your convening power, that's one of the things you're also focused on very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the private sector and the financial sector have understood the need for decarbonization and how we aim towards net zero, but the biodiversity question, because it's less tangible, and how do we monetize that? How do we attribute a value to that?
Yes.
And that's something that our Natural Capital Investment Alliance is looking at, where we're bringing some investors to try to tackle that problem. How do you make nature an investment theme? It might not be an asset class, but an investment theme where we have parameters that make sense. And I think the key thing is starting, like you say, it's starting somewhere. It's going to be messy, but we got to get started or it's going to be too late.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's your point about it's fuzzy, but you've got to commit. So you can, and William Blake had a lovely line: "Opposition is true friendship." So it's useful if people challenge it. The challenge will only improve it. They're not going to get it right the first time around.
I also think, Alan, there's also an individual element to this as well. So we've got governments, we've got individual businesses, we've got industries, and we've got us as consumers. And so if I think about the clients of Coutts, they're fairly wealthy people, and they have a much bigger carbon footprint as a result of that. And these old houses that people tend to live in, certainly in the UK, they're not exactly all that carbon friendly. So we're doing a lot of work around helping people be put in contact with people that know how. I mean, those houses are never going to be great, but they can be a lot better than they presently are. And then if they commit to that, we can provide funding at a lower rate than what they would otherwise get that funding. But getting people to understand that the carbon problem that we have is a result of us consuming. So it's not a corporate problem. Corporates have to deal with it, but actually we consume, and that is a cause of these issues. So while I said earlier we have 3/4 of our clients saying we want you to have ESG filters, there are a quarter that said no. And so we do have an education still with some elements of society to really understand how real this actually is. And if you want your great-grandkids not to have hippos swimming around the South Pole, we have to take action right now at an individual level.